Hello students. So in today's video I'll be covering two topics. One is on the financial planning. What is it all about? How the financial planning will aid as a tool in order to achieve the long-term goals of the organization, and what are the objectives of the financial planning. Fine. So what's the importance of it? Out of these objectives, how the financial planning can help in achieving both short-term as well as long-term plans we shall understand. So planning, you all know that what is planning is all about the process of thinking how the activities required in order to achieve a desired goal, a kind of blueprint what you are going to make in order to achieve a specified or a desired goal, right? So it is a kind of first and foremost activity which you are going to take up, that is as a financial manager you are going to take up in order to achieve the expected results, right? It involves the creation and maintenance of a plan, how you are going to do it. Now associate the term planning with a financial, right? So now what does the financial planning talk about? Planning you have understood. Now what does planning, what does it talk about when it is connected with the term finance? See, basically financial planning is the task of determining like how the business will afford, in order to achieve its strategic goals and objectives. I've told you, goals or objectives, it can be of two types. One is short term and the one is the long term. So basically it talks or it gives an idea about determining how a business is going to afford in order to achieve its desired objectives. Basically a financial plan, it describes each of the activities. It can be in terms of resources, and when I talk about the term resources is all about three M's: money, man, material. How it has been used in the organization, what are the equipments are needed, and what are the materials that are needed in order to achieve these objectives. Overall financial planning is something, it states about estimating. Fine. You are going to forecast the capital that which is required. You are not going to blindly make it. You are going to determine based on the competition, because all the the companies, the industries are there in the prevailing competitive market. So always you have to keep your competitors in the mind and you have to take a wise decision. So basically it is the process of framing the financial policies. What are the things that that you have to determine in terms of short term and long term goals, and what is the kind of you're going to create a balanced plan to meet those goals. It's very very important. And budgeting is very important, where budgeting is going to help you to keep more of your hand, hard earned cash as well, and an increase in cash flow can lead to an increase in capital as well. So like this, you are going to, as a financial manager, he's going to plan gently in order to meet the certain goals and the objectives of the organization. So always the company, it creates a financial plan immediately after the vision and the objectives have been set out, right? So this is how the concept of financial planning is going to happen, right? So apart from that, in depth sense, if I have to explain, so financial planning, it's a kind of a process which includes evaluating and managing and utilization of the financial resources very carefully, very optimally. When I tell optimally, it is not something like maximized usage of resources. All about best utilize, how best you utilize your resources in the organization, right? So the financial planner, what he is going to do, he is going to define the role, the responsibilities, as well as how the things has to carry, right? So all these things are going to work. That's very important. So if you ask, ma'am, what are the steps involved, you can determine the financial situation, develop the financial goals on that, and identify the alternative courses of action, evaluate those alternatives which you have found like it would actually mean the money for you, implement the financial action plan. Whatever you have planned, implement that, bring that into action. Now you have to check the reality versus expectation. What I expected, now what I have got. You are going to have a proper planning all that. So what you have to understand is that a financial planning is where you are going to determine what the business can afford in order to achieve its goals. It can be short term as well as long term. All right, now we shall understand what are the objectives of a financial planning. Now you have understood what this financial planning is all about, and what is the purpose, what does it aid, how it acts as a tool for the firm to take the decisions. Now we will understand what are the objectives of financial planning. So the first one is ensuring availability of funds. What does ensuring availability of funds talk about? See, financial planning, majorly it excels in the area of generating the funds. That's very important, right? That's what I told you. First aspect is to financing decision, followed by investment decision. Later, out of your investment, whatever you have got in term of return or profits, then you will arrive at dividend decision. After dividend decision, you will take care of the working capital decision. So what is it all about? Ensuring availability of funds is that it talks about the area of generating the funds as well as making them available whenever they are required. Whenever you want it in the firm, you should be able to gauge that, you should be able to get those funds so as to fulfill your that time a requirement. So, and this first point, it also includes the estimation of the funds, what is required for different purposes. You are going to consider your nature of the business, your size of the business. Based on that, you are going to pour in the money, whereas you're going to take care of both a long term as well as your short term. Short term is basically the working capital requirement. So to sum up with this point, ensuring availability of funds talks about how you are going to generate the funds, from which all the sources you are going to raise the funds. If you're raising, you have to look upon the factor called availability. Whenever you want, whether the funds are available, is it readily available? So ensuring the availability of funds is one of the major objectives of financial planning. There's something like, before implementing something, you need to have a ready plan in which you are going to estimate, you are going to think upon the availability of funds which is required in the course of action, right? So the next objective what you have under financial planning is estimating the time and source of funds. What does it talk about? See, you all know that time is a game changing factor in any business venture, right? So here what happens, delivering the funds at the right time and at the right place, it is very crucial. Highly it is crucial, because the market is volatile in nature, is subject to volatility. There's lots of fluctuations. You have lots of economic factors that which affects your decisions at the time of raising the funds. You have a factor of inflation, right? You have a factor like interest rates. You have to keep in all these minds when you're going to borrow the loan. What is going to matter for you? The interest rate that which is attached to your borrowed loan, that matters a lot, right? So then apart from that, it is vital. Of course, this point to do is vital as the generation of the amount itself, while the time is an important factor. The sources of these funds are not necessary as well, right? So the timing, when and where you are going to finance your source, that is financing decision what you are going to make, it is very very crucial. The time, with the time how you are going to move, that matters, because time, as I said, it is a game changing factor in any kind of business venture. So it is very important you make sure the funds are available at the right time whenever the company is in the requirement, and followed by the time, how you are going to estimate the time which is attached with your sourcing of funds, fine. So the next point under objectives what you have is generating capital structure. Now what does this generating capital structure talk about? See, the capital structure is nothing but the composition, like the capital of a company, where the person, the planner, what he is going to do in this, he is going to make a decision on proportion of the capital which is required by the business, because he knows while planning he would have made what are the different financing mixes I need to go ahead with, what are the things I need to take care of, how my capital structure should be. All these are very very important, and it acts as a main determinant at the time of making a decision. Now, to talk about the capital structure, it talks about a distribution of a debt and a equity. You are going to include, I mean to say in simple words, debt is a borrowed fund, equity is owned fund. So debt is to equity, that which makes up, the finances of a company. So basically it tells about how the company is going to finance the debt and equity in order to have its, overall operations and the growth. Where the debt, it comes in form of bond, the issue of the loans, right, or the loans as well. While equity is something which comes in form of, it can be, the common stock, it can be the retained earnings as well, right, and the preference stock as well. So that's how the things are going to work. So basically, if you ask me, ma'am, what's the, the importance of capital structure? See, a capital structure is said to be the careful balance between the equity and the debt, where the business is going to use its finance assets in order to have the day-to-day operations, that is short term and the future growth. That talks about the long term aspects. Fine. So this is how the things are going to work under point 3, generating capital structure. The last one what you have is, it talks upon avoiding the unnecessary funds. What does this avoiding unnecessary funds talk about? See, it is something like where, again, this is one of the important objectives that as a financial manager, he needs to take care of, where the company, to make it has to make sure that the firm does not raise unnecessary resources. Like, it can be the money, of course, the money comes first, followed by the material, followed by the labor as well. So it's to make sure that the company doesn't, raise any kind of unnecessary resources. It's going to make up a plan in such a way that it doesn't end up making any kind of losses on that, or any kind of, keeping, getting the funds in large but keeping it in idle form, and that idle funds are not able, they are not investing and making a money out of it, right? So again, shortage of funds, and the firm cannot meet its payment obligation. You all know that when you have inadequate funds, what is going to happen? You can't meet the obligations, you can't pay out, right? When you have adequate, what happens? You don't know how to allocate the funds. Ideally you will, for the sake, you will do it, but what's the planning over there? How are you going to tell that? How can you justify your allotment, right? So whereas with the surplus of funds, as I said, it's like adequate, the firm doesn't, does not earn returns, but it adds to the cost, because the maintenance of your materials, everything costs a lot, right? So all these objectives, are very very important under financial planning. While making a plan, with respect to the finance, the budget, kind of capital or amount, a financial person, the planner, need to keep all these aspects in the mind, and then he has to come up with his, the printout, that is blueprint of that particular, financial planning.